So, for social studies, we're now studying Chapter 12, the Declaration of Independence. The essential question for this chapter is, what are the main ideas in the Declaration of Independence? So, we're going to go through this Google Slides presentation together on the video today. And then we're going to go back through it when we meet in small groups. And my expectation is that you will have done the reading today so that when we meet tomorrow in small groups, you're all set to go and you can participate in the conversation. So, in this lesson, you will learn about the Second Continental Congress. Delegates at the Congress moved the colonies towards forming a new nation of independent of Great Britain. So delegates are basically people that represent the other people in an area. So, for example, when they were convening the Second Continental Congress, trying to make a new government, and trying to decide whether or not to go to war and to declare independence from Britain, they needed people from each colony to be able to give their opinions. So a delegate was just someone representing. So you would have delegates from Georgia colony, you would have delegates from the New York colony, you would have delegates from the Massachusetts Bay colony, and all of these people came together to give their opinions and to give information about what was going on in their colonies and how people in those colonies were feeling about the idea of declaring independence. So, you'll learn in this chapter about the events that led up to the approving of the Declaration of Independence. And you'll also read about the key role that Thomas Jefferson played at the Congress. So, the vocabulary you'll have to know before you start your reading is listed here. We've got Second Continental Congress, militia, Declaration of Independence, Founding Fathers, and equality. So you can choose to make flashcards and look up these words online, or you can play the Quizlet games. And I would really recommend clicking this link and playing the Quizlet games. So I'm going to just quickly go through how to do it. The first thing that you can do on Quizlet is you can do flashcards. So what you do is you'll get a card like this. This one says Second Continental Congress. You'll click it and it'll flip over. And that is, it will have the definition on the back. The meeting of delegates from the American colonies that began in Philadelphia in 1775. The Congress approved the Declaration of Independence and acted as the colony's government during the Revolution. This says revolution. I'm going to have to fix that. Okay. So, another thing you can do on Quizlet after you've practiced all the 5 flashcards is you can go to learn mode. Oops. And in learn mode, you are typing the answer. So, this is one of our words. Leaders, including George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, who laid the groundwork for the United States, are called the Founding Fathers. So, the meeting of delegates from the American colonies that began in Philadelphia in 1775. I'm going to go ahead and make a mistake because I know this is the Second Continental Congress, but I'm just going to write Continental Congress and see what happens. So, what happens if I put the wrong answer or an incomplete answer is it will give me the correct answer and it'll say what I said. So then I can continue to practice and it'll bring that one back for me. So you can also do writing mode and spelling mode, and you can give yourself a little quiz on Quizlet. It's kind of a fun and interactive way to learn your vocabulary. So the next task is going to be you're going to read chapter 12, pages 161 to 167, and you're going to fill out the chapter 12 reading notes quiz, which is right here. It's also going to be posted on Google Classroom. You want to fill this out as you read or as soon as you're finished reading so that it all sticks in your head. Here's what that little quiz looks like. So there's just a few questions here. You've got when did the Second Continental Congress meet? What the first task of the Continental Congress was, where they met, and who wrote Common Sense. Those are the 4 things you're going to be looking for as you're reading. And remember, you're going to do your reading before you come to your meeting with me tomorrow. This was something that came in worksheet form that we I don't know if you guys remember, not every we didn't have a workbook for each person, so I was just copying the worksheets as we went through the chapters. And since we are learning remotely and we don't have the worksheets, we're just going to go ahead and go through this. I made a digital version for you guys to look at. But since we had so many problems with the templates last week, I just figured we'd go through this in small groups. So we'll go ahead and do that tomorrow. Um, Also, there was this workbook page you can see an image of that we do not have. So, what we're going to do is go through that activity together in small groups as well. I'm going to go over it once right now in the during this presentation so that you get some background knowledge and a first view of it. Because the Declaration of Independence was written so long ago, you'll find that the language is a little bit different than the way that we talk now, and it's kind of difficult to understand. So, what you're going to do is you're going to read pages 166 and 167, which has excerpts or little small parts of the Declaration of Independence. And then we're going to go through a process of paraphrasing, which means kind of putting it into our own words so that we can understand it. The Declaration of Independence was written in the formal language of the late 1700s, and it's really difficult for modern English speakers to understand. So, our next task is to translate the document into language that a fifth grader can understand. Normally, we would do this in class, and you guys would struggle with it a little bit on your own, and I'd be walking around and helping and clarifying and answering questions. Since we can't do that, we're going to just go through it together as a group. Before we read this excerpt, I wanted to point out the two highlighted words. Dissolve means kind of to break apart, or if you've ever seen, if you had a sugar cube and you put it in water and it dissolves, it's kind of coming apart and melting into the water slowly. And then this word impel means to motivate or to push forward. So, an excerpt is a little section of writing from a larger document. Let's read the first excerpt of the Declaration of Independence on page 166. It says, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. So this sounds very confusing, and I did some of the work myself for what I think the general idea of the Declaration of Independence, this excerpt is. So why don't you think about it for just a second? And then I'm going to share. Here's what I think the main idea of the first excerpt is. Sometimes things happen which make you realize that you've got to speak up and tell others why you are upset and why you want to leave. When it's talking about dissolving the political bands which have connected them with one another, they're talking about the American colonies and their connection to England. And they're saying it's kind of time for that to go away, for that to just dissolve and fall away. And they have to declare the causes which impel them to separation. Just basically means we need to speak up and tell England why we're so upset and why we want to leave. Um, Here's a second excerpt from page 166. This one is very famous. You may have heard it before. So, the vocabulary on this page, self evident means that you can figure it out by yourself. Endowed means given. Unalienable means you can't take them away. And liberty is just a synonym for freedom. So here's the quote. We hold these truths to be self evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I want you to think for a second about what you think the general idea of this excerpt is. I think this one was easier to understand than the first one, and I'm going to be asking people tomorrow to be sharing their ideas of what they think that means.